G'day guys, I finally got my hands on an R36S clone. So today I thought we would take a look and see if it's really as bad as people say it is. I picked mine up secondhand on Facebook Marketplace for $40 Australian, but the seller mentioned that they paid $120 Australian. They said they only used it for about 5 minutes, so this should be as new. The box itself is quite a bit different from the genuine version that I received a few months ago. Taking a look inside, we've got the same generic piece of foam. Got the translucent orange version. Looks really nice. The first giveaway it was a clone is the fact that there is an SD card in slot 2, but not in slot 1, which is where it normally boots from. But we'll get into that shortly. We've also got the USB-C cable. The screen protector, which looks like the last owner did try and apply and failed. We've got the manual. My real R36S didn't come with one of these. You can see here it does say it's an R36S. And it looks like they purchased it from GameBro. And it's just a thank you card in the bottom. The overall construction of the clone is basically identical to the genuine unit. It has the same case. But as mentioned, it only has one SD card, and that's in the ROMs slot. If we take it out, so there's no SD cards in it, and we try to turn it on a real R36S, it will just be a blank screen, nothing on the screen because there's no boot files. But on here, you can see it does boot from its internal flash. Again, the genuine R36S has no internal flash. And it says we can't find any systems. So it looks like the OS is in fact stored on the internal flash, and it's only using the SD card for ROMs. We'll power it back off and take a look at the actual software. So the first thing I noticed is it does have a bunch of different background music. We'll take a look at what games are included. So it says there's about 15,000. It does have all the major systems included. There were no DOS games though, but there were also no DOS games on the legit R36S out of the box either. You'll also notice there was no options menu, which means no port master, at least out of the box. Pressing start does bring up the usual system menu. We can see it is running EmuElect version 4.7 and not ArcOS. We'll take a look at EmuElect settings. There's nothing too special in here, nothing out of the ordinary. Same as game settings. It is very basic. So again, no option for Portmaster. We'll try out a few of the more popular systems and see how well they run. As you can see, the lower end systems like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance and all that work perfectly fine. Nintendo DS does work fine, but there was no default full screen option, so you can't view one of the screens at a time. You can only view split screen. Also, the D-pad in Drastic is mapped incorrectly by default. Up on the D-pad is actually down, and left on the D-pad is also down. Right and down are not mapped at all. Obviously, you can fix this under settings. It's just interesting to know that out of the box it is broken. Nintendo 64 does not support save states at all. You are able to change the cores for performance issues, but again, no save states. I also noticed Nintendo 64 performance was worse than ArcOS on a real R36S. PlayStation 1 had no issues, save states do work on that. PSP did have a fair few lag spikes, and again, the A, B, X, Y buttons seem to be mapped slightly incorrectly, but this could be fixed under settings. As for Dreamcast, Giga Wing didn't run as well as it did on our legit stock R36S. There were some lag spikes, but it was still playable. I think next we'll power off the unit and pop the SD card in our computer to see what the file system is. Maybe try and add some DOS games to it, see if we can do that, and also see if we can mount the internal storage. We're over on our Windows 10 Chromebook now, and I think we'll start by trying to mount the internal flash on the R36S. So we're trying the left OTG port. The light comes on and it just says it's charging. And there's no enumeration in Windows. I'll check Device Manager, and it definitely didn't detect anything. So I'll unplug it from the left port and we'll try connect it to the right port, which is usually the OTG port. And again, no change. So you can't access the internal flash on a computer using a USB cable. Next, I'm just inserting the stock SD card into my cheap SD reader. Close off Device Manager, and it did mount. Let's have a look. It's FAT32. Let's take a look what's on there. Interestingly, it is called R35S/R36S-game and 64G. I'm guessing that's just to make it easier when they're imaging their SD cards in the factory. So there is a .update folder, and it's empty. You've got all your systems, obviously. Background music, bezels. There's a backup. It's empty as well. J2ME, looks like it does support Java games, the old ones. There's another one. So there's two J2ME emulators. I mentioned that because ArcOS doesn't have that by default anymore. And that's pretty much it. There is no boot file. There is another update folder. Looks like it's for RetroArch. I didn't see a ports folder in here. Oh, there is a ports folder. There is a ports folder, and it does have a bunch of ports in there, but unfortunately, they just don't show up on our handheld. Let's have a look if any of the folders are full. Oh, so they are all empty. Blake Stone. So all the ports folders are empty, including Doom. Yeah. Let's double check the file size to make sure they are all empty. And yeah, 0 bytes. I think next I'll copy some games over and we'll see if we can get a port working and something in DOS working. I have copied some ports over from my ArcOS SD card in my genuine R36S console, so we'll test them out. I've also copied a DOS game, but I thought we would check disk management to see if there's multiple partitions on this SD card. And as we can see, there isn't. It is just one big partition, FAT32, the entire drive. So we'll safely eject this now, and we'll put it back in our R36S clone and see if ports work and DOS games. So we've finished booting up. We'll take a look if there's a ports folder or DOS folder. Unfortunately not. We'll see if there's an option to refresh games list. Update games list, click yes, see if that helps. And we'll see if there's a DOS or ports folder now. There still isn't. I'll see if enabling show hidden files helps. I do doubt it though. I might try refresh game list once more. Unfortunately, it looks like our added ports and even our DOS games just don't show up. That is a huge disappointment. I'm sure there is a reason for it. If you do know what the issue is, let me know down below. Overall, stock performance on the R36S clone is slightly worse than a real R36S. As mentioned, there was no save state feature For Nintendo 64, Nintendo DS D-pad was mapped incorrectly out of the box. Some PSP buttons were also mapped incorrectly, but both of those systems can be mapped manually to fix that. Dreamcast and PSP both had lag spikes, more than is present on ArcOS on a real R36S. Another thing worth noting is how long it takes to boot. From power off until you're inside your game, it is easily over 1 minute versus around 10 to 15 seconds on a real R36S. Obviously depending on the game. Our ports and DOS games didn't show up when we added them, which is a massive disappointment. Again, I'm probably doing something wrong, but you should just be able to copy a game over and have it show up. Again, like on a real R36S. I'll definitely be looking into alternative OSs for this clone console, since the stock OS does leave a lot to be desired. I think that'll do it for today. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.